later.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Okay?
Okay.
You can't just turn this thing on.
I already did.
All right, let me get my coughs out. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
You totally know me. I was just rambling.
Yeah, that's the stuff I want.
Okay. So.
You should probably take your coat off, though, because it makes
it makes a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't you want to turn this thing off yet?
What?
Don't you want to turn the recording off yet?
No. I figured the way we'll be able to do these best is if we literally just are in a room together with this on all the time.
Okay, that
and
makes
it'll
sense.
Catch.
Don't you want a
everything we
seat?
say. No, I'm good here.
Okay.
The nice is, you can just imagine.
We'll have to edit out all my
a little
coffee.
bubble around it, so you don't have to get very close. Otherwise, you'll be super loud.
Yeah, so let's not even think of this thing on.
No, yeah.
Okay. So, welcome to Interesting Things, episode 1.
You can't stop yourself from doing a radio voice. You literally can't do it. I challenge you to not do a radio voice right now.
Okay. All right, I'm not going to do a radio voice. Okay.
Challenge 1, interesting things. Can mom not do a radio voice?
All right, so Hannah, welcome to Interesting Things. Why are we doing Interesting Things?
We are doing because we have interest in things.
That's right.
I think, yeah, like reflecting back, me and you like talking in the car.
Mm-hmm.
What we do, that's our happy place.
Right. Our car is our living room.
Literally. We call it your office. It's our place that we hang out. I don't know what that says about us as people. But
We're nomadic.
maybe that's it.
We're clearly nomadic. It's our Icelandic Irish heritage.
I don't think Icelandic and Irish isn't nomadic.
Well, there are nomadic people within those heritages.
There are gypsies mixed within. Well, yeah, okay. So for whatever reason, we like driving around in the car and talking. And I think it was almost 2 years ago now
Mm-hmm.
that we were exhausted and driving the way we usually are. And we started to pretend to do a radio show. And we were having so much fun. And we decided we should just actually record ourselves, because why not?
Right. And what was so cool about that moment was we recognized what we were talking about were things that just brought interest
Yes.
to our minds.
And you found a definition of interest or interesting.
Or
right?
a synonym.
Oh,
Right. The
synonym.
definition isn't really that interesting. but
Skip.
the interesting thing about the word interesting is there are so many cool synonyms for it. Absorbing, entertaining, interesting, pleasing, gratifying, satisfying to the mind.
Oh, I love that one.
I love this part. Something that is interesting occupies the mind with no connotation of pleasure or displeasure. And and that's the way I think we ought to live our lives.
And I feel like that's how I feel about what we're doing here when we talk and we find things interesting together.
Right.
Is it happens in place of judgment, kind of. We're just interested. It's
It
like,
crosses it crosses every line, yet maintains a civility of learning.
oh,
right?
I like that.
Yeah.
The civility of learning.
You can cross into every boundary, but there's a civility of learning.
Oh, I really like that.
I know. And I just thought of that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I like that we can endeavor to engage anyone in anything because it's our minds that are coming to that and saying, let me learn about this.
Yeah, learning interest in things, expanding your mind, it crosses all boundaries while
Right.
still creating bonds.
Wow.
Which is a lot of fun.
Wow.
I
Way
just
to
thought of that
wrap
one.
that up with a bow. That is awesome. This is what you do best.
No, I'm just playing off of you.
That's awesome. So anyways, that's why we want to do interesting things.
That's what we're here for.
We're interested in people offering us suggestions and advice for what we could talk about, what we could cover.
And the fact that, like we just did, me and you make up this stuff off the top of our head.
Right. And that could be
So-
dangerous.
90, I'm going to say so far as 90%, 95% of the time, we're probably not accurate on things.
Good point. And that's part of the interesting process.
Right. If somebody were to tell me that something I said was inaccurate, I'm like, that's another interesting thing. By all means, correct me. Let me find out the truth to the matter.
And don't wait a second. That is such a good point. Don't you think that that is so important in our culture today? We're sitting in an environment where no one wants to be corrected.
Ooh, yeah.
Nobody wants correction.
We don't sit in a learning posture a lot of times.
Whoa. Spoken like a true teacher. We don't sit in a posture of learning.
Yeah.
That's true. Ready to receive and ready to give.
Actively ready to do both. And I think that's harder than it sounds.
Right. Either we think we're a know-it-all and we're coming and presenting the information.
Right.
And we can't be corrected. Or we think that we're just in a position of receiving and learning.
And I'd say that actually, just reflecting on my own experience of like the times where, you know, I've been in my clinical experience for the elementary education program and I have to teach a lesson plan or something. And sometimes that like courage and bravery I have to work up so much to get up in front of the people that I need to teach and teach them that sometimes that's like an adrenaline pump, and I almost forget that I could also be learning.
Right.
And so I think when you're capable of doing both, it really speaks to you being able to be solid with who you are and comfortable in what you have to say.
Exactly.
You know, you're no longer in that adrenaline rush, like, you know, it makes me think of like a war scenario where you're like, I have to just survive this situation, but now you're like thriving in it.
Ooh.
When you can both teach and learn.
Holy Jiminy. Yes, thriving in an environment of learning.
Oh, yeah.
Requires...
And isn't that the goal?
Well, look at a 5-year-old. Look at the way a 5-year-old is in a learning environment. They're both actively listening, generally, actively listening and telling you something.
Oh, good point.
You ever notice that? Like,
and sometimes they're actively listening and telling you
all at the same time. Right. It's funny. They don't sit there and, you know, they receive a thought, they receive information, and then they tell you something back. Whether you want to hear it or not. It might be about your outfit.
I was just about to say that sometimes it's not even on the same topic.
Right.
They're just so in that mode of receive and give, receive and give, receive, that they're going to do it on everything all at once.
Isn't that
everything
awesome?
They're observing.
That's what I love. I love that. So that's who we want to be.
We want to be 5-year-olds.
We want to be 5-year-olds. Thanks for bringing that up. That's a true statement. But we want to be people who are both actively giving and actively receiving information.
Yeah.
Knowledge. And like, how does that tie to wisdom then? Let's think about that off the top of our heads.
Okay, so how would you define wisdom versus knowledge?
Well, I think of wisdom as applied knowledge.
Okay.
So how would that connect to knowledge?
Well, I'd say it's almost kind of a part of that process. Wouldn't you say that knowledge you receive?
You're receiving the knowledge.
And wisdom is maybe when you can give it back because then it has action behind it?
Right.
Is that accurate? I don't know.
I think that you can always call us out on it. Remember, we're actively able to receive.
Call me out on it now.
Because that's interesting. But I just think that in this culture where there's so much political hype and there's so much, there's no dialogue. Nobody's willing to have a conversation about anything.
Or things that seem put on the guise of dialogue.
Right.
What hurts me sometimes, and I guess that's a bit dramatic, but it does. It just feels like it hurts sometimes. Is when I see things like, whether it's a comment section or just the way people are interacting with one another, that accusations are in the guise of discussion or, you know, learning or whatever it is.
Wow.
And it just makes me sad. I'm like, come on, y'all. You had like a great opportunity there. This is an interesting thing that you could be talking about.
Right.
And you've just sidetracked it down some rabbit hole of hurt feelings and accusations. And sometimes I get it. There's a time and a place. People need to be called out. I've been on the receiving end of that and benefited. Right. But it doesn't have to happen all the time.
Yeah. Correction, like you're talking about, correcting one another. Like you said, there's a time and a place for it. And I think that most of the time, that correction can be in a learning style together. Don't you agree? It doesn't have to be so...
I think 9 times out of 10, that's the most beneficial correction, is when it's kind of alongside love and it's in a learning format, you know.
That's a good point.
Because I think correction that doesn't come that way is more of an emotional response.
Wow.
It's people wanting to let you know that you are wrong and they are right.
Boy, talk about check your heart.
I know. I've been there.
I'm there right now. I'm going through my morning going, who have I run into today that shouldn't have run into me? You know?
But think about it, like when you're in a place where you're not wanting to let someone know how you feel about it, then you're wanting to help benefit them as much as yourself. And then that's positive for both of you, and it completely changes your interaction.
Talk about community.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it funny? Everybody wants to talk about community, but really doing community is taking interest in other people and in other things.
Yeah. It's one of those things that it sounds so simple to say, and yet it seems hard to do.
It is, because we're self-absorbed by nature.
Yeah.
It's what we are, self-preservation, self-absorbed.
Which makes sense in some situations, like you just said, like self-preservation. You have to survive.
Right. Right. But ultimately, can you imagine? This is why, I hate to go there. This is why I think the young generation is all looking into, stuff that is, in my opinion, I'm going to say it, it's failed. Communism, socialism, all these isms, right?
Ferris Bueller said it, you should not believe in an ism. I love that movie so much.
I do too. Anyways, but it's funny because they're looking for that community where everybody is so interested in another's interests and who and what they are that they don't even have to take care of themselves.
Ooh.
Their needs are met.
I think I blanked out through part of that. Say that again.
I think everyone's looking for that community, which it's not going to be in this world. Do you know what I mean? But it's that community where everyone is looking out for other people's interests and in their and looking into their interests, being interested in them to the point where their needs cyclically are already met
because somebody else is
meeting that
theirs,
need.
And they're looking into somebody else's.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
And I think of like your first year luau. Remember in Hawaii?
I don't remember that.
Well, you were a year old. You couldn't really remember that. But at a year old, you had a first year luau. And there were hundreds of people there.
Sure.
And that's a culture in Hawaii it's a giveaway culture, how much you can give away versus how much you can obtain. And, definitely you can be giving for the wrong reasons.
Sure.
Right?
You can do anything for the wrong reasons.
So motive, there's something to be said for motive.
Right.
But they just give. And I remember at the end of that luau, I had so much stuff for you that I had virtually no need of anything.
Really?
Like no clothing. I had no need for clothing, no need for playpens, no need for diapers for a year.
Really?
There was diapers for a year.
Wow.
There was so much
That's
stuff.
amazing.
I know. To the point where I got to just spend time with you.
And see, that is beautiful. Sometimes I feel like there's a balance that's hard to achieve in recognizing that stuff doesn't matter. It's not the most important thing in life. You don't want to be materialistic necessarily.
Right.
Or at least I don't want to be materialistic. But at the same time, stuff is very real to survival.
Right.
And when you have stuff taken care of, you can just enjoy, like you said, hanging out with your baby.
Exactly. You can look into the finer things of life.
Yeah.
That's the kind of that's the cruelty of war, is that basically, the basic needs aren't even met.
It's all about survival.
It's all about survival. Right. And so, how fortunate are we in this given time period that we can investigate things that interest us? Like Olivia.
It's such a blessing, yeah.
Yeah. Our youngest was up late doing homework, which I don't even want to get into.
Homework.
Are we giving too much homework? That's a whole nother episode.
That's a whole new interesting thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting episode. No judgment on that, by the way. We're just going to talk about the quantity that's being given out.
Our personal experience.
Right. So she was doing all this homework, and I just found myself researching things that interest me, gaining knowledge. And once I had a quantity of knowledge obtained, suddenly I had thoughts on that knowledge.
Yeah.
And I had an ability while I'm waiting to review and read what she had, just to see, how it was.
Being a good mom, helping out.
Yeah. I had an opportunity to think, and I was really blessed by the idea that, it was the concept of memory. And I just became so intrigued with remembering things, remembering something. And what was so cool about that was I thought to myself last night, of course it was 2:00 in the morning and things can get a little bent about that time, but I thought to myself, which is a truer, fuller meaning of something? Is it the actual experience or is it the memory of it?
Ooh.
Because in the memory of something, right, you take away the fear, the hype, the emotion, and you just have the purity of.
I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the cycle of being a learner and a giver.
Yes.
Or a teacher and a learner. That's what we're talking
about. Right. Giving and receiving.
Because in some ways, the experience is you're receiving, but then the memory is just the applied experience that now is a part of your life.
Oh my gosh, that is so good. I'm putting my tea down for that. That is so good. I have to use my hands at this point.
You have to talk with your hands.
Wow, that is so good, Hannah.
That's really an interesting thought.
I know. That's why this is called Interesting Things. I know. And then, what it brought me to, obviously, is when Jesus said about communion, right? Remember, his disciples were there with him at Passover.
Right.
And they had the experience of Passover. But then he says, do this in remembrance of me. Right? Ooh. And I'm telling you right now, every time I'm at communion, I'm experiencing that. I have the opportunity to step into that experience.
But even more so, like we were talking about, because now you know how it applies.
Oh my gosh.
You know the crucifixion that comes after that.
Yes.
The disciples, when they were introduced to that, it was just the experience of communion with Jesus, which, I mean, let's be real.
Is a big deal.
That would be a big deal.
It's a big deal.
But to be on this side of the cross, to now know how that applies to our lives in even a bigger sense, that we don't just get to eat with Jesus, but that meal symbolizes so much more for our spiritual life.
Wow.
Is huge.
Gosh, do you see the application? Look, what we have come to today.
Fun.
Memory is fun. And that's what I was just recognizing was I was listening to a quote. I mean, I read a quote by a woman that I don't even want to mention because she's just way too controversial to bring up in any kind of a setting.
So moving on.
Right. But I love what she said, and I'm paraphrasing heavily. So, if you want to critique, just go ahead and quote the real thing down below, whatever we do here, or email us or whatever people do.
We'll figure something
I'm
out.
so old. But the point is this. She said that she could be true to memories, but not to people.
Huh.
And I thought...
True to memories, but not to people.
Yes. But I thought that this is a person who the memories are safe for her. Mm-hmm. The memories are the applied goodness. It's like the concentrated goodness.
Well, I was just going to say, the minute you said that, the first thought I had was people change.
Yes.
Memories don't necessarily. I mean, they do. Obviously, memories erode. But...
And people hurt us.
Right.
We're hurt by people.
Yeah.
There's pain, there's suffering. There's anxiousness, fear, intimidation. I was just listening to a group of girls the other night and listening to them talk about how frustrated they get that where we live, in the part of the country that we live in, guys and girls don't, young men and young women don't naturally socialize together.
No, yeah.
And that's a difficult thing for them. And they want that socializing, right? Mm-hmm. That happens in other parts of the country a lot more naturally because of population. There's just more people.
Or different cultural phenomena or whatever.
Right. But these girls, they're all like, well, why don't these people want to socialize with us? It isn't that they don't want to socialize. Mm-hmm. It's multiple realities. Both genders find one another intimidating.
I think that's probably true.
Right? Especially when they're grouped up in more than two people. You know.
Well, it's intimidating to approach any group of people that seem bonded for whatever reason.
Right.
I mean,
And ultimately, well, that's a whole nother show. We could talk about this whole, what is the best way to live our lives in terms of embracing and interacting with each other?
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole nother topic. We can't even go down there. That's a rabbit hole.
That's a big rabbit hole.
So, but the point is that they want to experience each other. And so they are perpetually coming back to one another to try and experience each other, but they can't get there. There's this barrier, right?
Now, I have a curiosity that just popped into my brain.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about how they keep coming back, but there's some kind of a barrier.
Right.
And yet I think of examples where I've talked to young people and they are talking about, times when they would all, groups of young people, guys and girls, would get together and it would be this really wonderful, beneficial time.
Right.
But they were together or for particular reasons. Maybe it was they were gonna work a community pumpkin patch, or they were going to, go somewhere and do some kind of service or something. I wonder if maybe, but see, I already don't like it as I'm thinking it. I was going to say more things like that bring them together, where you don't have to be focused on one another as much as you can just a shared task.
Well, there's that. There is that, and that's a beneficial thing. But then they get burnt out on that.
Right.
And they just want more.
Well, because you want to be able to just enjoy talking to someone at some
point. But there's so many issues. It's like we had social norms and we had things where like dances or, things that you just did. Remember that day we were talking about, you said people used to know how to greet one another.
Yeah.
Like you go to another country, they basically teach you how to greet people in that language. When you take French, what's the first thing they teach you? How do you say hello? Bonjour.
Right.
Or how do you say goodbye? À bientôt. You just begin to learn these things of how to say hello and goodbye, the norms.
Those are the first things you learn. Even before you learn the alphabet, you learn how to greet people.
Right. But in America, we're so diverse here, and regionally, we're so different. We don't even know how to interact and say hello to it. There isn't a norm anymore on how to even do that.
Well, norms are regional now.
Right.
But then I'd say, even if you pulled back, I'd say the entire globe for the most part. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm making stuff up now. The entire globe is, I'm going to go with it, is, they're not no one's as strict on their rules of etiquette.
Of engagement.
Yeah, as they once were.
Right.
And I think in some ways that's, good things have come out of that. I'm
right.
Gonna say
more relaxed.
More relaxed. I'd say like social classes and things.
True.
Don't have as strict lines as they once did. There are a lot of benefits. But at the same time, part of me is like, that's kind of nice though. For me, I'm an individual that likes to know exactly what's going to happen.
That's true.
And so etiquette is just this beautiful thing that dictates exactly how a social interaction is going to go down.
I know. So the question becomes what to put in place of that. Is there something to put in place of that? It's a big question. It's a big question.
Part of me thinks you just practice managing the inconsistency of modern socializing.
Yeah, but how do you manage something that you don't know?
Gosh, I don't know.
Yeah, because that's, what it becomes? Ultimately, it becomes every single time you walk into a room, you have to re-navigate how you do it.
But at the same time, it's not completely foreign. Like, how many times do you walk into a business meeting and you think, oh man, I should have put on my clown suit? Like, unless you're in a clown business, there are certain things that just never happen.
Well, it kind of depends on what business you work at these days.
I mean, if you're a party clown business, then maybe you should have put on your clown suit. But
part of this goes to the philosophical reality of like deconstructing everything. If you really think about it, another show as well.
Right.
Which we're going to do next time, actually, I think, because that's a real issue where we've just literally taken everything and deconstructed it and broke it down to why do we do that at all?
Well, and I guess an interesting question I would have for that topic, which we're not going to cover right now, it would be, because we're actually running short on time.
Oh, yeah, we do. We have to go somewhere.
We do.
Okay.
But I think it would just be interesting is, after you've crossed that line into deconstructivism, I don't know if that's
deconstruction.
Deconstruction. You've crossed that line. You're over it. You're there now. Can you go back?
Wow.
Can you train your mind to not do that? Because sometimes I find myself with certain things that I've trained my mind to, that I'll never be able to not do that anymore. Or I'll just, get Alzheimer's or something. Like, something will have to stop it for me, because there are certain things like, ballet was a training I had, or horseback riding was a training I had.
Right.
And those different trainings, they bring thoughts with it that I don't think I'll ever be able to stop myself from automatically, stand up straighter.
I was just going to say your posture is phenomenal. No one can see you, but I can say that your posture is out of this world. Even when you eat at the table, it's magnificent.
And that's one of those things, too, that's like, it gets under your skin. It becomes a part of you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to stop being conscious. And hearing my teachers in my head, sit up straight, suck it in, like all of those different things they used to tell you, raise your arms, lower your arms, all of these things. Right. And so with deconstruction, I'm not going to say deconstructivism, that's not a word. With deconstruction, can you rewind the clock?
Wow. Can I just mention Julie Andrews in The Sound of Music when she was coming in to hear the captain sing Edelweiss?
Oh, it's such a fun scene.
Oh my gosh. I know that we jumped to this, and I'm sorry. But
it's a little random.
When she came in, she was doing that ballet posture arm thing. And I go, look how she's just elegantly floating in with her arms at her side like that. And you look at me and you're like, because she was classically trained. She probably did ballet.
She totally didn't even know she was doing that.
No, but boy, did that look magnificent. Nobody stands like that, but she looked.
To this day, she's still the most elegant woman.
Queen. She's an absolute queen. And Georg, I just have to say, what a man.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it out there. Last night, a final thought. Last night, for anyone who's interested.
You have to make the pun I think you're about to make.
What?
No, continue
No,
talking.
There's no pun in my mind right now.
Okay, continue.
I just want to say this. Last night, as I was just trolling through the internet, I found, I can't believe I used the word troll, but I found the original Sound of Music on YouTube. And it's in Austrian, and there's subtitles. So for anyone who's interested, and you love the Sound of Music like I do, and like we do, you have to go find that on the internet, because it's so much truer to the original story, to the actual recounting of their lives. And it's so...
I have to watch that.
You do, because you have to watch it because it's in the original language, which is a much harsher language than...
Oh, I love things in their original language. It's so interesting.
Yeah, it is. And so I found that last night. I watched the second half.
That's awesome. Is it really long, like the Disney Sound of Music?
It's pretty long. Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I just put basically from the scene where she comes with the kids and is drenched from the... I don't even know if that one's in there. I just said the second half, actually.
And you just went with whatever brought you.
But it was phenomenal. And I'm going to be honest with you. The reason I bring this up, Anna, is because, yes, Julie Andrews is the queen. However, the lady playing this role and the captain in this one, a little more believable. I'm just going to be honest with you. Just going to be honest. This is hard, I realize.
This is a hard statement.
It's a hard pill to swallow. So before we go, can I just say how awesome we're going to shout out to Lake Missoula Tea Company.
Oh, I know. Isn't this delicious?
Yeah. Do you know what our tea's called?
We both got teas before we came in. It was the one they were sampling, strawberries and cream.
You have a memory. Yes, it's strawberries and cream, and it's phenomenal.
It is so good.
So thank you, Jake and Heather at Lake Missoula Tea Company. You guys are awesome.
Plugging your college friends.
Plugging college friends. Okay. Can't help it. Well, thanks for listening, and
we'll see where this goes.
We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
When we come here next time to meet one another. Take care, and stay interested.